Listen closely. No matter how strong you think you are, there will always be something capable of shaking you. A single word, an unexpected abandonment, a betrayal you never saw coming. Maybe you have wished to become unbreakable, someone untouched by criticism, rejection, or loss. Someone who no longer feels that subtle, corrosive pain gnawing at you from the inside, even while you put on a brave face for the world. Here is a truth few dare to speak aloud. The more you try to avoid feeling pain, the more control it gains over you. Every effort to numb yourself, to protect your heart, or to hide what hurts only strengthens its hold. You remain captive to others, what they say, what they do, what they withhold, not because you are weak, but because your approach to coping is flawed. This is the reality for most people. The only difference is that some become better at faking strength than others. Carl Jung, one of the most profound and challenging thinkers in psychology, made this painfully clear. We are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. Here is the crucial insight most people miss. Real strength is not about becoming cold, shutting yourself off, or being untouchable. It is about integration, bringing into the light what currently governs you from the shadows. True strength is not measured by whether you bleed or not. It is knowing who you are, even while you bleed. If this message makes you uncomfortable, that is no coincidence. This is for you, especially if you are tired of feeling emotionally overpowered or sense others have an unexplained control over you. But a warning first, what comes next may be painful. And precisely because of that, it may also be the key to your freedom. You may believe that the source of your pain is external, what others say, what they do, the abandonments you have endured, the betrayals that caught you off guard. But here is the hardest truth to accept: none of it has power over you without something already open inside. What wounds you is not the event itself, it is what it awakens within you. It is the story you replay repeatedly, a trauma you never confronted, a void you cover with pride, strength, or a desperate need to appear stable while internally crumbling. Jung was unwavering on this point. The pain we attribute to the outside world is almost always a reflection of what we have yet to integrate within ourselves. This explains why some people endure devastating losses without breaking, while others collapse from a single comment. It is not about what happens. This is where it hits the hardest. Now comes the uncomfortable truth. You keep suffering because, deep down, you still believe you can control how the world treats you. You try to be better, kinder, stronger, smarter, more understanding, thinking that improvement will shield you from pain. But control is an illusion. As long as you cling to it, you'll live in constant tension, attempting to predict the unpredictable and avoid the inevitable. Do you want to stop suffering? Then listen carefully. The solution isn't more control, it's more awareness. As long as you expect others to change for your pain to vanish, you remain a prisoner of their actions. True freedom begins when you grasp a fundamental truth. Nothing from the outside holds power unless it resonates within you. And here is where the real conflict lies, not outside but inside, in the unconscious. What you fail to see, understand, or confront doesn't just influence you, it controls you. This is where everything is decided, whether you spend life reacting or whether you begin to choose consciously. The biggest lie you've been told is that you're in control of your life. Wake up, you are not. At least not while living on autopilot, reacting without understanding why, feeling without tracing the source, making choices that you later undermine. Carl Jung said it clearly: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is not a metaphor. It's happening to you right now. The sudden pain, the anger that erupts without warning, the sadness that floods you even when everything seems fine, none of it is random. These are signals from parts of you that have been ignored, suppressed, or forgotten. They will continue to speak until you listen. What you resist does not disappear. It waits, growing stronger in the shadows, demanding attention more forcefully the longer you ignore it. This is why the same emotional patterns feel inevitable. This is why life repeats situations with new faces. The unconscious doesn't punish, it teaches relentlessly until you learn. The moment you shift from asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" to asking, "What within me needs to be seen?" everything changes. Pain stops being the enemy and becomes a guide. This is not an easy truth, but it is an honest one. Integration is not about fixing yourself, it's about reclaiming the parts of you that were set aside just to survive. When you stop running from your inner wounds, the world loses its control over you. Criticism may still exist, but it no longer defines you. Rejection can still sting, but it no longer destroys you. Loss may still leave its mark, but it no longer empties you because you are no longer at war with yourself. Few choose this path, not because it's impossible, but because it requires responsibility. It demands that you stop blaming the outside world and turn inward. Yet, beyond that discomfort lies something most people never experience: emotional freedom. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of awareness. This is where true power begins. Jung referred to this realm as the unconscious. It is not passive. It is not a vague cloud of forgotten thoughts drifting in the background. It is an active, living system composed of memories, wounds, desires, impulses, fears, and unresolved experiences that you chose to ignore, but that still shape your life. Even when you believe you are in control, even when you feel you are making free choices, this inner world silently influences your reactions, attachments, anxieties, and limitations. Have you noticed how certain words can deeply wound you while leaving others unaffected? That's because these words don't strike from the outside. They resonate with something already wounded inside you. They awaken old emotional scars that were never given the chance to heal. And if those wounds remain open, it is not life continually hurting you, it is that you never truly faced them. You hid them. You pushed them down, buried them under layers of distraction, denial, strength, or silence. And now they keep resurfacing in different forms. Jung was clear: nothing changes until it is accepted. And this is the hardest part to admit. You have not fully accepted yourself. You have judged yourself, suppressed yourself, silenced parts of who you are, thinking that self-punishment could somehow be the answer. That being harder on yourself would make you worthy, safe, or free. But repression does not bring peace, it creates pressure. The unconscious does not vanish when ignored. It finds other ways to manifest. It emerges in toxic relationships you repeat despite promising yourself this time will be different. It shows up as self-sabotaging patterns you cannot break, no matter how hard you try. It appears as anxiety that strikes when everything seems fine, as fear without a clear cause, or as emotional storms that catch you off guard. This is not bad luck. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not fate working against you. It is your unconscious trying to wake you up while you insist on staying asleep. If you genuinely want to end your suffering, you must stop running from what resides inside you. As long as you remain unaware of your own unconscious, you will continue to be controlled by your emotions, reactions, and past experiences. The more you try to shield yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to internal pain. The escape is not through hardening yourself, defending yourself, or trying to become untouchable by force. True liberation comes from integration. Integration is not resistance, it is a deep, honest understanding of yourself. This brings us to the crucial question: what does it truly mean to be unbreakable? And why does this strength come not from armor, but from something far harder to achieve: acceptance? Most people believe the only way to avoid hurt is by closing themselves off. They build walls, wear masks, and craft emotional armor, repeating phrases that sound strong but are false. Nothing affects me. I do not care. Yet inside, they continue to bleed and slowly erode. The problem is never feeling or sensitivity. The real issue is not knowing what you feel or why you feel it, which stems from not truly knowing yourself. Joseph was precise when he said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when you touch a human soul, be just another human soul. That soul you hide behind control, discipline, toughness, and invulnerability is asking to be seen." Emotional strength has nothing to do with becoming cold. It is not ignoring pain, avoiding conflict, or pretending nothing matters. True strength is far more challenging. It requires integration, acceptance, and bringing into the light what you once buried in darkness. You do not become untouchable by putting up barriers between yourself and the world. You become untouchable when you grasp one key truth: no one can use against you what you have already embraced within yourself. When you integrate your shadow, fears, flaws, and insecurities, a profound transformation occurs. You stop reacting blindly. You start observing. You start choosing. You are no longer unconsciously driven by old wounds. That is freedom. Joseph called this process individuation. It is not about becoming morally better. It is not about meeting others' expectations or being who you thought you needed to be accepted. It is about becoming whole, becoming what emerges when light and shadow stop fighting and recognize they belong to the same self. Joseph's message remains clear: until you face what lives within you, it will control you from the shadows. But once you integrate it, it loses its power over you. Only then do you truly become yourself. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. You don't need to be better, you need to be complete. And here's a truth that few will tell you: the more you run from pain, the more it follows you. The more you resist being affected, the more fragile you become. When you face your own wounds, when you fully accept who you are, the beautiful and the ugly, the noble and the shameful, the light and the dark, nothing external can break you. Nothing outside yourself can undo what has been integrated within. This path requires real courage, the courage to look inward, the courage to remove your masks, the courage to feel rather than escape. Pain is not a mistake, it's a doorway. The key to transformation lies within your pain, not outside, not in distraction, pleasure, or denial. Suffering is not your enemy. It is the threshold to your true strength. From a young age, you were taught to fear pain. You were conditioned to see suffering as weakness, crying as useless, deep feelings as vulnerability, and sensitivity as a flaw. So you learned to run, suppress, numb yourself, distract your mind, avoid silence, avoid stillness, avoid yourself, and the more you ran, the faster the pain followed. Pain doesn't disappear when ignored. It changes form. Unfaced pain becomes anxiety, anger that erupts unexpectedly, emptiness, apathy, chronic fatigue, self-sabotage, addictions, and destructive impulses you don't understand. Ignored pain doesn't die, it digs into your psyche, your nervous system, your identity, until one day everything collapses. What you call a crisis was never sudden, it was accumulated silence. Jung saw suffering differently. Pain was not an enemy, but a messenger, the language of the soul, the alarm system of the unconscious, the voice of your total self trying to reach awareness. He said something uncomfortable for anyone who only wants to feel good. He compared depression to a woman in black. When she appears, don't chase her away. Invite her in, sit with her, listen. Most people don't listen. They silence it, stay busy, numb their emotions, anesthetize their mind, anything to avoid looking inward. But the real question, rarely asked, is: what is this pain trying to show you? The truth is simple and brutal. Suffering hurts because you are at war with yourself. One part of you wants to grow, another wants everything to remain the same. Something inside pushes toward transformation, but your ego, addicted to control and familiarity, tries to suppress that call. And in that friction, pain emerges because change is difficult. Growth is challenging, letting go of old beliefs is painful. Breaking toxic ties hurts. Losing familiar identities wounds. Allowing what no longer serves you to fade is painful. Leaving behind past versions of yourself is hard. All of this is grief, a deep internal process of death and rebirth, a psychological farewell, a symbolic collapse. Yet, this is something few truly understand. It is precisely in this space of inner collapse where new life begins. When everything inside you breaks down, when your certainties crumble, when your defenses fall, when your pain exposes your vulnerability, that is when, for the first time, you can see who you really are, without shields, without performance, without roles, without masks. At this exact point, suffering ceases to be punishment and becomes sacred because it brings you face to face with the only force capable of liberating you yourself. Joseph recognized this. He understood that suffering is not a mistake. It is an essential part of the journey. Pain is not the end. It marks the beginning of the path toward individuation. Most people turn back before reaching that dark valley. They flee. They distract themselves. They return to safety. They choose comfort over truth, familiarity over transformation. But if you are still present, it is because something inside you is ready to cross, to endure, to descend, to confront what others avoid. Few people have the courage to begin the journey of individuation, and even fewer see it through, because this path offers no comfort, no guarantees, and does not protect the ego. It dismantles it. Joseph defined individuation as the process of becoming your true self, but few grasp what this truly means. First, it requires letting go of who you thought you were, a process more painful than any external rejection, because you begin to see a startling truth. Much of your identity was constructed. You are not your achievements. You are not your traumas. You are not the image you created to be loved, accepted, respected, or admired. All of that was survival, strategy, psychological armor, emotional adaptation. But surviving is not truly living. Individuation is life calling you beyond survival. It is the moment when the unconscious pushes everything repressed to the surface, everything hidden, denied, distorted. Joseph made it clear individuation requires the dissolution of the persona because the persona is merely a socially convenient mask. Simply put, you must shed the skin you built to discover what lies beneath. Through this process, you begin to become untouchable, not because nothing affects you anymore, but because you have already walked through fire. You have confronted your monsters. You have faced your shame, your fear, your dependency, your anger, your insecurity, your darkness, and said, "I see you and you no longer control me." That inner clarity, that lucidity in facing your own shadow, becomes a strength that is independent of approval, validation, recognition, or control. You no longer need to please everyone. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to show strength or prove anything, because you already know who you are, and that cannot be taken from you. True emotional armor is not a shell, nor hardness, nor numbness. It is a center, a core, a full integration of all your parts into a stable consciousness that stays grounded even during life's storms. You can feel pain without being broken. You can be wounded without losing yourself. You can suffer without fragmenting, because you have stopped living on the surface and started inhabiting depth. Depth comes with a cost: solitude, not because you are lonely, but because very few can walk with you that far inside. Most remain on the surface of life, clinging to masks, afraid to feel, afraid to look deeply within. They survive by pretending, adapting, hiding their truth. As you free yourself from this way of living, distance becomes inevitable. You separate not out of rejection, but because you are no longer the same person. This distance is not arrogance or superiority, it is growth. You don't walk away from pride. You walk away because you no longer fit in the spaces where you once had to hide your true self. You outgrow the roles you played to be accepted, and that growth naturally creates space between you and what no longer resonates. This brings us to the most crucial stage, consciousness as protection. True protection does not come from strength, it comes from clarity. Only from awareness does anything lose its hold over you, not just some things, but everything. At this point, one truth must be said plainly. Nothing can shield you from external suffering if you remain unaware of your inner world. Words will still hurt. Rejection will still leave marks. Failures will still knock you down until you wake up. Waking up is not a magical moment, it is a daily choice. It is choosing to look inward. Even when it hurts, it is taking full responsibility for your feelings without blaming others, your past or fate. It is deciding that your inner world matters more than the stories you tell yourself about the outside world. As Joseph said clearly, what you resist persists, and what you accept transforms. For much of your life, you have resisted the fear of not being enough, the emptiness of rejection, the pain of loneliness, and the anxiety of feeling unseen. And what did you do? You hid. You silenced yourself. You tried to control everything, to be perfect, to always be strong. That effort left you exhausted, drained, and tired of fighting both the world and yourself. Now you understand something essential. True emotional immunity is not hardness, it is clarity. It is not building thicker armor or becoming colder. It is expanding awareness. When you understand your triggers, patterns, and wounds, the actions of others no longer destroy you. You still feel, but you no longer drown. You still suffer, but you no longer lose yourself. You remain present, rooted, conscious, and that changes everything. Protection comes not from defending against life, but from immersing yourself fully in it. Those who live on the surface are hit by every wave. Every word destabilizes them, every setback shakes them. Those who dive deeper discover something different: silence beneath chaos, stability beneath movement, power beneath fear. That is where you are beginning to live now. When you inhabit this place of integration, presence, and acceptance, the world may still try to knock you down, but it can no longer find where to strike. Not because life becomes gentle, but because you become grounded. You are no longer fragmented. You are no longer running from yourself. You are no longer asleep. If this message resonates, do not keep it silent. Write it in the comments, not as an opinion, but as a decision. Write, I choose consciousness. This is not the end, it is the beginning of living awake. If you truly understood something today, you know that living asleep is no longer an option. Subscribing to this channel is not just about supporting a video, it is a decision. It is saying, I will no longer react without understanding why. I will no longer run from myself. Activate the notification bell if you are ready to listen, even when the truth is uncomfortable. This space is not here to entertain your ego, it is here to awaken your awareness.